everyone for joining us for this week's demo session, technical overview of Goverlan. We're going to be discussing monitoring critical infrastructure with Goverlan. Goverlan has a lot of versatility. You can do a lot of different things with it. And today, Raul is going to take us through how we monitor our Exchange service, make sure our emails are arriving, make sure there's no issues, make sure that service is up and running. And he's even going to discuss with us a little bit about how you can remediate if things go wrong. Not only can you send alerts, which we'll be looking at quite extensively, but also maybe some tips on different things you might be able to do when things go wrong. And Raul probably needs no introduction to any of our customers on the line. He definitely has made himself known to the customer base here at Goverlan. He leads our technical support team. And if you're a prospect and you're looking at Goverlan for the first time, or you're in the evaluation process, you'll get to know him really quickly. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Raul to amaze us with some Goverlan scope actions on monitoring critical infrastructure, in this case Exchange. And you'll notice that Raul is starting from a blank template here. So if you're following along at home or at work, hopefully not at home, you can definitely build this out yourself, and you can use this to start monitoring your Exchange service, or for that matter, use any one of the individual tools to monitor any of your other infrastructure. So take it from there, Raul.
Okay, thanks for the intro. I'm really excited about this one because we're really going to touch on a lot of areas in scope action. We're definitely stepping this up to scope action masterclass. We're going to be touching things like we're going to be touching things like dynamic value, which is a thing that I know some customers have some questions about. Also, how to configure the email alerting, as well as conditions in scope action. Basically, we're going to bring all these things together to create a comprehensive monitor for our Exchange server that we have here in our lab. Now, this is an Exchange server. So like most things, you're going to want to consider the service that you're trying to monitor and the things that are important about it, right? So I came up with a quick short list of some things that I've experienced in the past of monitoring an on-premise Exchange server, and some of the things that you might want to keep an eye out for. But these techniques can be applied to a SQL server if you're monitoring that. It can be applied to an entire line of business series of servers. So you might want to monitor a front, middle, and end tier sort of thing. So these techniques that we're going to demonstrate here, you can definitely apply them everywhere. So in our case here, for our example, what we're going to be doing is we're going to set up a monitor for the actual Exchange database file size, just to check its growth, to make sure it doesn't get too big. We all know that once these database files get to a certain point, they can become unstable. Another thing we're going to monitor, and that's very important for Exchange, is services, right? So we want to make sure that the critical services that come with an Exchange server, and there's like 15 services there. We're gonna take a look at monitoring critical services. So you pick the one that you need, and also communication between specific aspects of this server. So this server here will have all of the roles on it, but we've also configured a smart host. So if anyone is just familiar with email terminology in that case, it's basically the default gateway for the server, if you will. All email will go to this smart host to be dispatched to the world. So in doing so, we may want to ping it from time to time from the Exchange server. And that's really, really important to as far as monitoring is concerned. Pinging something from your machine, for instance, to determine if it's up and down is all fine and dandy. But if your server's on another subnet and it needs to ping something else, and there's something going on there, you're not really going to be aware of it, because you might have communication to that target, but the other end might not, the system that really needs to. So we're going to go over a real quick technique that we have documented on our website for monitoring connectivity between two remote endpoints, which is nice. And then we're going to go over a little bit about, remediation and gathering information so that you might be able to do some sort of root cause analysis and that sort of stuff. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's get right into building this stuff out. So I'm gonna actually do it from scratch. So we're gonna do every step all the way through. We've got a little time, so this is gonna be good. Here we go. So the first thing we're gonna do is add a new scope action. Okay. In this case here, we'll call this Exchange Server Monitor. Okay. Now, what we're doing in this case is we will be targeting a specific server. So that's going to tell us what our scope is going to be, who we want to target, what we want to run the checks against. And of course, always add a category. I suggest everybody do this in scope action in general as a best practice, just so you can organize your scope actions as you begin to build these libraries of things that you can automate. Monitoring servers, right? So we'll say something like that. And of course, we can add a little description. Exchange server status monitor. Okay, just to keep it nice and pretty. So in this case, we'll be targeting this specific Exchange server with our scope action. So I'm going to come here to add new, and I'm going to add an individual object. Now, one important thing about this screen here is if you have a series of servers that you want to monitor and you want to apply this sort of as a template to all of them, you can choose a few different servers and add them here. So that means all the checks will apply to each one of these servers. Or you may want to do something specific for a single server, and that's what I'm doing in this case. So here is our Exchange server, right? It's got a funny name, but don't worry about that. Trust me, it's Exchange. So here's our Exchange module. I'm sorry, our scope module, which determines our targets. Now I'm going to click next, and now we're going to build out all the checks here. So I just like to always add this as when talking about scope actions. Scope actions is a framework. You build all the little bits and bobs together to come together for a custom solution that fits your needs. There is no automagic button Exchange monitor thing that you click and it will just do all the work for you. We've all had experiences with other network monitors, and when they try to do that, you end up with tons of alerts that you don't need, monitoring every single little performance counter out there. Doing it this way, in my opinion, is a lot more personal. It's a lot more specific to what you want to monitor for the environment that you are very familiar with. So let's build all those little pieces right now. Let's do add new. And the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the database size. Let's monitor the database size to see if it grows past a certain point so we can be aware of any issues that might arise with that. So here I'm going to name this, and just again, a word of advice, always be very specific with your action module names. Try to stick to a naming convention if you can. This is just going to help you organize all the things that you're going to create, and it creates a nice modular experience for you. So monitors the actual size of the Exchange database, right? Or a Exchange database, could be any one of those. So here, the first thing we're going to do, and for each of these checks, you really only have one action that you need to perform, and that's an alerting action. So this action is going to do something to notify you that your condition hasn't been met or has been met for whatever the logic that you're putting in. So specifically in this case, I like to use the send email message. You can couple this with send pop-up message, which is nice too. So you can receive a pop-up to see what's going on. But send email will hit you no matter where you are. So if your phone is buzzing while you're somewhere at happy hour, you'll know why. So we're going to configure a bunch of email parameters here. We use Office 365, so I'm just going to put my stuff in here. as we know it to be configured. But again, you can add your own email-based notifications here. Now, somebody might say, well, you're monitoring Exchange. Why would you put in email stuff here? If your Exchange server goes down, you won't get the emails. My suggestion would be, in that case, use something other than your Exchange server to send emails, so that way you can make sure that you get this information. So I'm just going to say Goverlan server monitor and the subject. Okay. So when building these emails, we want the emails to actually tell us something. We want them to tell us information about the check that we're working with. Okay. So here we're going to use set dynamic value definition. And if you haven't used this before, I suggest you take a look at the user guide to see what these basically do. In a nutshell, it's going to allow you to set variables into the action so that it will produce information that you use. So it's very common to using like percent username percent or percent computer name percent. These are variables that you can insert into your actions, and they represent different parts of the action that you're going to run. So I'll give you a quick example here, right? So the subject line, you might want it to be Exchange server alert, right? Something that gets your attention. And then you might want to insert the name of the system that you're targeting. So it tells you right here, use the insert key. So if I click the insert key, I am presented with these menus that we're all familiar with if you use scope action before. And basically we can insert any value from these menus into the text here so we can see what's going on. In this case, I'm just going to use system computer name, right? So this is going to read Exchange server alert dash the server name that has the alert. And then I'll just put another little dash here. EDB file has exceeded size limit, something like that, right? Because this first example, we're monitoring for the size of the database. So this email should be very specific to what you're trying to monitor. That way you get information quick and you know what's going on. So if I click OK, I've inserted the dynamic value there so that the variable will pop up right there in the middle in the email, and we'll see that later on. The same thing goes for the email body. The email body, you want it to be specific. So in this case here, let's say we want to make sure, we want to monitor, dynamic value. Let's say we want to monitor the size of the database, and we want to know when it's above, let's say 25 gigs, right? That's pretty big for an EDB file, but depends on your organization. So here we might want to do something like insert system computer name dash and be a little more specific about the error itself, right? So we'll say Exchange database file has exceeded 25 gigabytes, right? Because we're going to put that in the check. So we want to be very specific here. And we might even want to put some remediation information here. Please check and run. Anybody familiar with the Exchange world will know ESC util.
Can you also just put in the current database size as well? If you just said it.
Yeah, you can do, if you want to do that, you can actually do that here with file system object. Now, I've created the file system object already. Just in case anybody wants to know, it's just adding the path in here so we know what to target. And we can actually do that. So actually, that's a great idea. So we'll do a new line, right? And then we'll say EDB file size is, and then we'll do insert file system object, and we're going to add the size in kilobytes. Okay, so now, because we're going to target this with the condition information to look specifically at the EDB file, we're going to insert its information right there, which is great. So we can know that right there in our email. Now, this is just information about sending your email. Of course, you would input your SMTP server information. I'm just going to pop in mine as I know it to be smtp.office365.com. and it's TLS, so it's going to be 587, and I'm just putting my own information here. Don't worry, I'm not giving up any goodies. Okay, and yes, for TLS. Okay, so you would put in your own email server information here. This is information that pertains to the system that is going to send you the alert, not the email system that we're working on.
So just to clarify over here, since probably as a best practice, you shouldn't be using your email Exchange server to send out a notification
about Exchange.
So what other services can I use in there? Can I use Gmail, anything like that?
Gmail, you can use if you've got a free Outlook.com account. These are different ways that you can do that. A lot of organizations have backups, right? They might have a backup email server that does something, so you can kind of bounce them off each other. If you want to monitor the backup, you put in the primaries. If you want to monitor the primary, you put in the backup. So you can kind of bounce between the two.
Okay.
Okay, so I've built my first notification. Now we just want to tell it what are we going to notify about, right? So we're just going to add a condition now that tells us what exactly we're going to do. So here we'll do set computer condition. We'll jump to the file system object. And here, again, I'll just show you what this one looks like. It is the path to where my Exchange database files are. Your organization may have different ones depending on how you set it up. This is how it exists on the Exchange server. This is the local path as far as the Exchange server is concerned. Okay, so now if I go to file system, database path, and here we want to set a condition to monitor for a specific file. So we want to set the name is equal to, and I forgot the name. Let me just grab the name real quick. I have it here very quickly. The name is right here. I'm just going to copy it from my server. Okay, so it'll be your Exchange database file. Mine is just this because it's the default installation. So the first thing we are telling this action module to do is send us an email when this file, specifically here, has this name, and of course we want to set a size condition. So we go to size in KB, and we want to say is greater than, right? And then a value in kilobytes. So I believe that's going to be that, right? Let me see. That'll be mega. Oh, no, I put too many zeros. That's 25 gigs, right? Okay. So now we're saying, send me an alert when this file is greater than this in kilobytes. Okay, so that's our condition. Our condition is what we want to target, the information that we want to find out. And everything else is built around that. So the alerts are built around that. Our naming convention is built around that. This is really the most important part of this. This is where you set your alerting conditions. So we've got our first one. So now let's move on to the second object that we had taken a look or wanted to monitor, which was some service up down, right? So that's a basic need, just to take a look at some services and see how that looks. So here we're gonna again name it very well, and we'll say service monitor. And then we might even put the name of the service that we're trying to monitor here. You can monitor a series of services as well. Information store service. So in this case, we're going to be monitoring for the Exchange Information Store service, which basically provides access to the mailboxes. Without this service, no one can open their mailbox. So check for the status of the Exchange Information Store service. So we want to make sure this is running. That's the key here. So we will actually be doing the same action as before. Send an email. And we just fill out our email properties again. Just bear with me. Let me do this real fast.
And instead of doing it real fast for folks at home, you can save save these as templates, and then just copy them and change whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
Whatever you have in the notifications. But Raul likes to work a little harder than most.
I do. I like typing.
He's a hard-working guy.
All right. So here is the main part, right? So again, our subject and email body is going to deliver the information that we want. So in this case, we're monitoring for a service. So let's go ahead and set up our alert for a service. So we'll keep Exchange server alert. This is what the same subject how we started before. So we can do insert, of course, the system that we want to know about. That's very important. And you know, something like Exchange information store service is not running. Service is not running. Oh boy. All right, so we've got our subject. Now the email body, same thing. I'm actually going to paste this because I have this somewhere else. It'll be a lot faster. Actually, let's use dynamic value because again, we want to insert some information here. So let's see if this works here. No, that didn't work. Okay, I just have to change this for that system computer name. So the system computer name, the Exchange information service is not running, mailboxes may not be available. And again, you can continue to add further details to this to make it more valuable to the thing that you're trying to monitor.
Yeah, I think in a previous example, we even put in like the current status of the service, whether it was stopped, whether it was.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely do that. I kind of think if you're getting the email, you know why it stopped.
Sure.
But in this case, yeah, you can definitely add as much stuff. Remember, these menus are huge. So you can add lots of details in here if you want. Maybe if you're monitoring, you might be monitoring, you know, some file information. You want to put the file-based information in there. You might be monitoring, you know, something about local users. So you might want to say this user is currently logged into that system. You know what I mean? So there's lots of details that you can add in here to make it very, very customized. And of course, there is this stuff that will be specific to you. And we just pop these in. Okay. And true. Let me just do this. Okay. So we've got check number 2, and of course, what it is that we want to monitor. So in this case, we'll be monitoring a service. So we're going to use our quick menus here to drop down to the services and software service. And we want to filter by name, right? So equals in this case. Now, if you were monitoring a series of services, what you could actually do is contains one or more, or contains all for the comma separated values, and you can put several different services. You can chain them all up into the one check, which is nice. In this case, we'll be monitoring one specific service. And here, the service name is not the friendly name of the service, just, you know, to let everyone know. This is going to be, if you go to services and you click properties of the service, what it says at the top, that's what you're going to be doing here. So this one is MS Exchange IS. That's the name of the service. So here we have the service name, and the last thing we want to do is determine that it's not started. Okay, so if we go down to services, driver services, software services, and we go to status. Okay, one of the things you also notice with these menus is they always have these little flags that pop up. That is very, very key information here. This is telling you what it is that we need to put in here. So we know we want to monitor when the service is not started. we could go ahead and say equals stopped and equals paused, but why would you do that? You can actually do not equals started, and that covers all of your bases outside of the fact, right? So here we're gonna do not equals, and then we're just gonna type in started. So if the service is not in that state, we wanna know. So there's the service name that we've decided, and there's the state that it will not be in, most likely, if it's down. And then we have our email. So I've got 2 checks. Now we're gonna do the last check. And this one here is one of my favorites. It does take a little bit of research to get this one through, but we have a write-up on it, and we can, correct me if I'm wrong, Ezra, we can put some notes into the stuff after the fact, because what we're doing here is we're using WMI and a specific WMI query to determine if we can ping something from that server to another one. So first thing we do, of course, is we set up our email, and I'll show you how that other magic works, which is great. You know what? Because you gave me such a great idea, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do this. No, we can change it here.
So let me just talk up that piece that you just did a little. So what he did is you can save a template, and then you can just add the template back into your scope, so you don't have to reset up that whole email process again. But you will have to go through there and change some of the dynamic variables,
right,
and stuff like that. But this way, at least you don't have to build the entire action again. And not only can you save those actions for yourself, but you can also share them among team members. You can build out a whole repository of actions. So if you build like this smart host ping monitor and you want to use it on other services aside from Exchange, you can have it saved in there, and then you just change it slightly each time.
Exactly. And this is a lot quicker, of course, right? So we've got most of the details that we need. The only thing we have to change here is the subject and the email body. So here, this will be Exchange Server Alert, the system that we want to monitor. We're just going to change this little bit of information here to be cannot contact smart host, right? So of course, smart host is a upstream email server that you basically forward all your email to. This could be emails very reliant on DNS servers, so you can make a check to see can the Exchange server contact its upstream DNS server as well. So that's another thing you can monitor. Anything with an IP address you can monitor with this technique that I'm gonna show you now. So cannot contact smart host is the subject, and the email body is going to be, let's see. Let's use something really specific here. So I have one already pre-populated that I wanted to do. Hub transport server cannot ping the configured email smart host. Please check connectivity to the upstream server, right? So it's giving you information about what's going on. You can, make it very specific if you want, or as general as you need to be. This is completely customizable to what you want to monitor. So now we've got our email. I'm gonna save that. And now we just have to change our check. And I'm just gonna get rid of these. And we're gonna change our check. So the one that I'm specifically mentioning here is actually a custom WMI query, okay? So I'm gonna show you what it looks like. So I'm gonna come here to manage WMI objects, use a separate list, manage a custom list here. And I've added one right here called Win32 ping status. And I'm gonna show you exactly what's in here. Now we have this as a write-up so that you can create your own Win32 ping status checks, if you will. And basically this runs a query, a WMI query that says select everything from Win32 ping status where the address is this. This basically calls a WMI method which will ping that IP address. So this is coming from the server, the Exchange server. We're saying, you know what, we want to ping that IP address. Tell us the status of it. So once you add that here as an object, you can then call it in your conditions. So if I come here to WMI objects, And mine is all the way here in the bottom of the screen. Not sure if you guys can see that. And the check is going to be, oops, I removed it here. The status check. Okay, so let me just do the shortcut here so everybody can see. So W my objects, I'm coming to the custom query that I made. And then here there is an area called status code. Okay, so we're gonna select status code as our condition. We're gonna say equals, and this is how cool Goverlan is. Let me show you something. Goverlan will take the WMI class, and for each property that's in the WMI class, it's going to know if it's a Boolean thing, if it's a true or false thing. It's going to know if it's a date and time field. It's going to know if there's a series of values already there. See, I didn't have to enter any of this. Goverlan automatically parses the class that you're trying to mess with and gives you the relevant information as it appears for WMI. So I'm going to select status code is success, and I'm actually going to say not equals, I'm sorry. So this means when this ping happens, if the status code is not a 0, which is what we selected, success, then it failed. Okay, so if this server cannot ping that other server, we fail and we say, here's our email. So this is the third check that we have here for monitoring the server. I'm just going to copy that up there. And now I have them. I have all three of them here now. Database size monitor, service monitor, and ping monitor. So on this server, we're going to say, I want to check the database size, I want to check the up-down status of a service, and I want to check the smart host to ping the smart host from here.
And everybody on the line, if you check in your chat, I sent you over the article on how to build out the smart host ping monitor, because that is, out of the ones Raul showed us today, probably the one that's the least intuitive. So just check in the chat. There's a step-by-step article on that.
Yeah, and once you have it, and you learn just, you change the IP, you'll be using it all the time, because it just makes so much sense on checking connectivity between systems that need to talk to each other versus checking connectivity between some sort of monitoring system and those other systems.
And I know, like, just from the marketing world, a lot of times your website works great from where you're sitting, but you go to another location and nothing's working at all. So it's always good to have that other point of view, like what's going on from there back to my location. So, and that's really, am I right on that? That's what our smart host ping monitor is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's best to know what's happening between the systems that need to be involved. And that's basically what you're doing there. So what we can do now is we can actually click next on this one, and we'll click run now. And what this will do is we can set up a schedule. So we can say, you know what, I want this to always run every day at a certain time. We can do at intervals. So we can do, let's say, here, let's do a custom new schedule. And we'll say new. And I'm just going to kick it off daily at 9, but then we can say repeat this every 10 minutes for this long, right? So it'll actually monitor it every 10 minutes for that period of time. And then you can actually have it send an email when it's done. Now, you don't want to get an email every 10 minutes. So I would actually turn this feature off, to be honest with you. You're going to get an email for each module that satisfies the condition. You don't need to receive an email every 10 minutes when the scope finishes. Now, there are some cases you might want to do, like, reporting actions and so on, where you want the scope action to send you an email once it's collected all of its information, and that would be a perfect use case for this here. But in our specific condition, you don't want to have this enabled. So there is our setup. Now I'm just going to click finish, and it's actually going to run the checks. So it's going to go ahead, talk to that server, do whatever it has to do to check on everything. If we did everything right, and if the server's okay, we shouldn't get any emails back, because right now the server's okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mess up our server. That's the next step. So we can actually see some of this in action.
Now, there's a quick question here, and you discussed part of it in setting up the schedule and having this run every 10 minutes. But John is asking something slightly different, and
Sure.
that's, can you set a time limit for not being able to ping? So, for example, if it goes offline for more than 5 minutes.
If it goes,
Because I know,
well,
like, what we have set up is if it's running every 5 minutes and you get 2 alerts in a row, you know that it's off for more than 5 minutes. But this is slightly different, I guess.
yeah, this would be a little bit different. In this case here, there is a technique that I would offer to use to do that sort of things. We don't have iterative checking like that within a scope action, but you can do something like this. And I use this technique personally. I think it's really good to use. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Once everybody hears registry, they usually blow a top. But listen, if you create a local registry key, HKey local machine software, IT, for instance, you can use that space to do whatever you want. So what you might want to do is you might set up a scope action on successful ping, write in a number in that registry area. On the next ping, write in another number. If you have two, on your third check, you could say, okay, I've got two in there now. Now I can do something about it. So you just need an area to store information persistently. That could even be a file if you wanted to. So there is a way around it. We don't have a built-in way to check iteratively for each scope action that has run to go back and see, but you can definitely do it if you use some other storage method to store the information and then make a decision on what you stored. So that's one way you can definitely do it. But in this case here, what we're doing is we're just sending a certain amount of pings, and we're saying, is this machine up? And if it is, that's great. If it's not, then send me an email. What you could also do if you wanted to, you could split the ping monitor into a different scope action that runs at a less frequent interval. And that in that case, you're not constantly pinging something. If it drops a few pings in between your checks, you really don't care about that. But if it happens at at a longer time span, that might be something you want to monitor.
Cool.
So here we have the server monitor. I did not receive an email. That's how I know it's good. And what I'm going to do now, and just for fun, I'm going to show everybody what that looks like. I have my email server right here, and I'm just going to basically ruin it. I created a little batch file that says break exchange, no smart host for you, and I add a route to a dummy place so that when we ping the smart host, it won't come up. And why for you stop my information store? Because I feel like it. So this is one of the plus sides to having this job, is that I don't think usually in any IT shop you write a batch file that intentionally ruins the server. So I get to do that here. So it's called break exchange, and I'm going to run it. So what we've done is we've added a dummy route, and we've stopped the service. Okay, so the ping will fail and the service will fail.
Hey, Raul, I'm not getting emails. I don't know what's going on.
Well, you're not getting them yet. So now we're gonna run we're just gonna run on demand so you can see what the emails come out to look like. So I'm gonna run this. The size one we really can't do anything about at the moment, but trust me, it's fine. We're just checking the size and sending an email. But we can definitely make it fail a ping and stop a service. So right now it's running, it's deciding on the checks, and it's gonna send me some emails. You'll probably see some pop-ups down here once it's ready. And I will take a look at my mailbox while we're at it. Okay, let's see. Here goes one. Here's the server that we targeted. Here's the server name, and it can't ping. And here's the other. Information store not running. Okay, so we got those two emails coming through, which is great. Now let's further enhance this with some remediation, or at least some information gathering, so you can have not only have an idea that something is wrong, but what might be wrong with it. And we're going to do that by adding some other modules. Now, we've already determined our conditions, and we want to always keep those conditions going because that's going to determine whether or not something is working. So I'm going to jump into properties here, action modules, and I'm going to add a few extra modules. And I'm going to use my little smart host ping here as a guide because it's just easier. So the first one might be based on the database size issue, right? So we might want to say something like database size issue, I don't know, diagnostics. We're going to report on some information with this module. What we're going to say is, tell me a little bit about what's happening there. Tell me about the C drive space. Maybe the C drive is running out of space. Tell me a little bit about, some aspect of the local disk that it's configured on, right? So we might say report metrics on the local disk. And that is the disk, whatever disk that the EDB files are. So here we can say, all right, we're not going to do a send email in this case here. What we're going to actually do is create actual reports. So I'm going to say report computer property, local drives, and I might want to know, I'll pick the device name, that's basically the drive letter, and available space and percent and use space and percent. We'll make it very simple in that case. And here we want to put in, let's take this one out, just the drive that we're looking for, right? So we'll say local drive, device name equals C drive. Okay, so we're making a very basic report here that will tell us the condition of the drive that this server is, the file is located on. So maybe the file is growing and you're going to run out of space on that particular disk. So here's one example of a report that we can run. So we will just drag that up and we've got our next one. Let's see what we can do about the service monitor. Maybe we want to restart some services because this service crashed. As you know, services can be dependent on each other, right? So you may have to, if the information store service starts, you might have to restart the Exchange AD service first, then start the information store service because they might have a dependency on each other. So we'll set up an action that does that. So let's just clear out some information here. And let's see, we'll call this service monitor remediation. Okay, and we'll say restart Exchange services. So here we have, of course, we have our actions to restart a service. So we'll go to restart. We'll just type in restart because I know service has that. So restart a service. And again, these are the service names. So just make sure you know the service names. And of course, we're doing MS. Here's one that I just kind of picked out of the list. Exchange mail submission, right? So that's a service that exists on the server that we may need to restart before bringing up the information store service. We'll do the same thing here, restart service, and then we might want to bring up MS Exchange IS. Okay, and we'll do that in the condition, of course, that the information store service is not running. So software service, and let's see here, we'll do name equals MS Exchange IS, and that is not in the started condition. So services, software service status, not equal to, and then of course started. Okay, so we set up the condition where we do this stuff when this is the condition here, when the IS service is not started. So we'll pop that up there. And of course, the very last one is to see what we can find out about us not being able to ping the smart host. Again, this is an example, so you can go ahead and come up with a lot of stuff when it comes to this. In this case here, we'll just report what the status code was of the ping return, because that might have some information for you. So here we will report WMI Win32 ping status, and this has lots of things in here that you can report in this class. In this case, we'll do the response. Well, we know it's not responding. Let's not do that. It's a status code. Here we go. All right, so we're gonna see what the ping status code was when we sent it. That's basically what's gonna happen there. And it could be several different status codes. So we'll set the condition. Again, it's gonna be the WMI object, the query, when the status code not equal to success. So all of these here correspond to a status code. Goverlan is going to give us the code back. I'm going to tell you right now. It's going to give you the code number back, but it's a quick Google search to find out what that code is. So let's do smart host ping result. Ping result for smart host that is not up. There we go. Okay, so let's pop that in there. We've got 6 of these suckers in here now. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what does that mean? We've got a database size monitor, tells us the size of the database. Service check, smart host ping. If the database size is too small, let's know a little bit about the disk that it's on. Of course, you can add lots of other things in there as well. If the service is not started, let's take some steps to start the service and do a little automation in there. So we're restarting 2 services in the process. And if the smart host is not pingable, tell us what the ping code was. So now we know for a fact that our Exchange server is in some weird state right now. We're going to run this, and we're going to get the report as well as it checking all of these actions. So what you can always do is take a look at the Goverlan report that comes out of this to see more or less what might be going on. So we'll just give that a second to run and to fail on everything. Okay. Oh, popped up on the screen here. All right. So we know we had 2 checks that were, some checks that were giving us a problem here. The one we have is status and, okay. So in this case here, we got local drive information because we asked for it. And I think I picked the wrong file size, the 25, put 25 kilobytes instead of megabytes or something like that. So that's why it gave us the information. But we also know that the ping failed. So we're getting a status code back. We do a quick Google search. That's going to just basically tell you general failure. That's what that code means. But you can get, you know, the destination host not reachable or any of those codes that you would normally see in a ping would show up here.
And again, if you're sending yourself an email, you could actually put in the email body all the different codes and their corresponding values.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
so
a good
you'll
idea.
know very quickly exactly what's going on.
That is a great idea. You can actually put all the codes in the email, and that's one of the things I like about building my own. You know, is that I can customize my alerts. I can customize to my checks to do exactly what I want down to a very, very finite area. And that provides me a lot more information than some systems you might get out of the box that assume a lot for you. And they may not necessarily apply to your organization.
And this is a good way to avoid fatigue from alerts. You know,
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
You know, I've used some alerting systems where it's like literally every 30 seconds it's sending you a new email.
Yep.
And here you have absolute control. You're never going to get an email that you didn't want to receive. So,
yeah, it's kind of like that commercial. You ever seen that commercial, the Febreze commercial? You've gone nose blind too. and then the spells, right? Well, you've gone
Right.
email blind too.
That's right. That's right. You're alert blind. You have alert fatigue. You're done with alerts. So
Yeah,
now you're getting real information. You're getting, what do I have to do to make this problem go away?
exactly. Exactly. So that is the demonstration in a nutshell. Um, all of these things can be customized, and you can really zero in on the specifics that you want to monitor. Um, a lot of this stuff, it's very, very specific to your own, and that's what Scope Action is about. It's a framework for you to create your own automations, your own monitoring, your own software updates. All that stuff can be done, customized for your organization.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Raul. Definitely appreciate you taking the time, and we're gonna end it here. We always welcome questions. If there are any, please reach out to us. You can reach us at sales@goverlan.com or give us a call. Our contact info is on the site, and we look forward to seeing all of you at future events. We're already planning next week's session, so look for that. Look for invites from that, and thank you very much.
All right, everybody, have a great day.
Bye.